Thank you very much. Yeah, I seem to say it pretty often that I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here. It's something that I got thrown into that I feel like I have to finish, I have to do. But thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here, and I decided if I was going to do this sort of thing, I was going to do it right and I was going to see it through. So, if you don't know what happened to my wife was horrific. I'm not going to give you every detail because it would take a while, and honestly, it's just too painful. But I'm going to give you the gist, which will be plenty. A couple of months ago, my wife was almost 13 weeks pregnant with our second child, and she had severe abdominal pain and bleeding. And it's that scary thing that no couple wants to experience. And you fear the worst. Where we live is very rural, so we really only have two options. We have an emergency clinic, and we have the big scary hospital with the emergency room. Because of what was happening, we decided to go to the smaller, more private emergency clinic, and it was closer. So that's what we did, and there we learned that our baby no longer had a heartbeat, which would have been devastating enough. But that's only the beginning of this nightmare for my wife and our family. What they determined was that the baby didn't have a heartbeat, but its heart had likely stopped beating a week or more prior. And what that meant is that the risk of infection skyrocketed. And things like sepsis, which could have killed her, all of those things become very real danger. So you have that conversation. What do we need to do? What do we do from here? What my wife had was an incomplete miscarriage. And they told us, well, you either need to get a procedure called a D&C, and they told us they did not do those there, or they could prescribe us a pill called misoprostol and send us home, where the baby would be expelled at home. And that is what they suggested. In those moments, you trust the doctors. You trust them to lead you down the path that is best. And that is the path they led us down, and we trusted them. So we start this, and it starts to go wrong really quick. We call the emergency center back and say, we don't think this is right. Something is going wrong. If you didn't know, misoprostol essentially induces labor. So if you have an incomplete miscarriage, it makes the body get the baby out. And my wife was already bleeding. Now she's bleeding profusely. And they asked us what color the blood was. And we said that it was red. It was bright red blood. And they said, well, what you're looking for is brown blood. And that became our focus. They said, that's how you know it's working, is if the blood is brown. And we're at home. We're doing this at home. We have a then 9-month-old daughter with us. We're having to navigate that, still be parents, do this miscarriage care at home with this pill that is known as the abortion pill, and it's going wrong. I had to go get a refill. They gave us a prescription with one refill. The first round didn't work. So I get the refill. I come back home, and it's still going wrong. It is not working. We haven't slept. My wife has been bleeding for a day or two at this point. And we call them back again and say, this is not working. We need another option. They say, come back in. We're going to do a recheck. We'll figure it out. If we need to write you another prescription, we will. So we go back to the emergency center, and there's another doctor on call. And we go in, they have her chart from a couple of nights before. They already know what's happened. And this new doctor doesn't even get up from his desk. His door is open, you can see. And he says, and I still don't know if he knew that my wife could hear him. I'm not giving her some pill so she can go home and have an abortion. And then seemingly kind of collected himself and came in and directly to my wife said, and I will never forget this, considering the current stance, I am not going to prescribe you this medicine. He refused the refill, and that was the end of that doctor's appointment. There was no other option. There was no other, but let's go get a DNC because the baby that you lost inside of you is going to kill you if you don't do something about it. That was just the end of the doctor's appointment, and they sent us on our way. What were we supposed to do? So we found another hospital about an hour away. It's where our daughter was born. We felt comfortable there. We called them. They said, come on. So we went. This is now our third trip to some sort of emergency care or hospital. We get to the hospital. They take her right back, and she has to start all over again. A new scan, reconfirm that the baby is gone, no longer has a heartbeat, measure the baby again, determine that its heart had likely stopped beating a week or so prior. Now they know she's 2 rounds of misoprostol in. She's been bleeding for days, and they just disappear for hours. They leave her there. I'm in the truck in the parking lot with our daughter on FaceTime with my wife. And that's how we're communicating. I'm having to be dad and put on a happy face for our little girl in the truck while trying to be husband to my wife who is in this hospital on her own, panicked, bleeding, not knowing what's going to happen. They come back in and they say, we have determined that this is not enough of an emergency to perform a DNC. And what that meant is that my wife was not close enough to dying for them to do the procedure that she needed so badly. What they said was, and this is how they get away with it, they said, we could schedule a DNC for you a week or two later. And they wrote her another prescription for misoprostol and sent us back home. At this point, my wife's been bleeding for days. She's bleeding through several post-labor or post-birth pads in 2 to 3 hours. She's bleeding through them. Anybody who's given birth or, witnessed a birth, become a parent, you know what those pads are. Those pads are thick, and she's bleeding through them. We go home. This time, the prescription that they gave us for misoprostol is much stronger. So, and there's no refill. It's our last chance. It's either this or we don't know what happens. And what happens is she starts bleeding so much. This gets us to Sunday morning. This started on a Thursday afternoon. She hasn't slept. She's been bleeding from Thursday to Sunday with our dead child still inside of her. I had a missed call on my phone. I was in the living room with our daughter, trying to make sure she's okay and put on that happy face so our little girl doesn't pick up on what's happening. I run into the bathroom where my wife was because that was her routine, to sit on the toilet and bleed and lay down and then sit on the toilet and bleed some more. When I went into that bathroom, she had fallen off the toilet. She was unconscious. She was in a pool of blood. And if I would not have been there, it is likely that she would have bled to death. She had to be rushed to the emergency room for life-saving care. And all of this happened because of the confusion surrounding Texas abortion law. And I've been in countless arguments with people about, is it the law's fault? Is it not? People love to blame the doctors. The law is the problem. Doctors should be able to perform the care that they need to perform. And what happened after the hospital was able to save my wife, thank God, is we decided to go public with our story because we felt that it was important for people to know what was really happening here in Texas. So, with my wife's support, on May 20th, I went public with our story. The post on Twitter or X or whatever we're calling it these days went viral. To date, it has been seen and shared by something like 30 million people. The reaction was overwhelmingly positive, but it was the thousands and thousands of people spewing ignorant hate that made me want to fight back. So that's what I've been doing ever since. But instead of continuing to engage with the ignorant, vile attacks online, I decided to reach out to experts, doctors, lawyers, professors who are experts on abortion and abortion law. I thought it was important to educate myself, then fight. So that's what I did. And I went on CBS, MSNBC, the Lincoln Project podcast, and several others, continuing to do the thing that I thought every man would do if something or someone harmed their family: fight back. Trump says leave abortion law to the states. Well, Texas almost killed my wife. There's been some backlash because I'm a man that's speaking out, which is just insane to me. Isn't this the way that it should be? Men standing up for the women that they love. Why are we asking the women to go out and relive these horrific experiences? Unless they want to. If they're comfortable, more power to them. But the question shouldn't be, why am I getting the attention? The question should be, where are all the other men? Men around here in small town Trump country, Texas, don't seem to care about women's rights. When they talk about the election, they talk about the economy and immigration. They seemingly do not care about the rights of the women in their life. So I guess what? We're supposed to sacrifice the women we love so gas is cheaper? I don't understand how we got here. I know Roe v. Wade being overturned technically was the first domino in getting us here. But as far as people digging their heels in and defending taking these rights away from the women we love, and the men being silent, I don't understand it. I really, really don't. And I hope continuing to share my story will open some eyes or inspire some people to vote. My biggest concern is that people have already made up their minds. And it doesn't matter that my wife's story and my family's story won't matter. We might as well have just kept our mouths shut.
No,
And
I absolutely, Ryan. I hope you're wrong there. I can see why you feel that way, especially with the viral and what happens online. But I wholeheartedly believe and see this too, that there is a segment of people, particularly Republican women, that are saying that isn't what I thought this meant. I didn't think that meant we were going to let our wives and our daughters die. You know, I've seen men come forward that have been Republican voters for decades whose wife's life was saved in the 70s because of Roe. And now they have daughters that are childbearing age and they're saying, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like if the same thing happens to her, my daughter doesn't have the option. That's not
right.
okay. So what you are doing right now is a true act of love for your wife, for this country, for your child, like for everybody, because people's minds aren't going to change until they hear the truth. Because they
Amen.
hear this mass information all the time. And they need to be confronted with the truth. And every time I do something with Amanda, and a lot of you that are on here have met Amanda Zworsky or seen her at one of our events, I tell her, like, I hate that you have to tell this story. And this goes back to what you said, Ryan, that women shouldn't be at the front of this, reliving the most traumatic moments of their life to make a difference. That shouldn't have to be our burden. And so the men like yourself, and we have Senator Johnson, who's on the call today, that are standing up and trying to, from both, the humanizing level and the legislative level, make a difference, is how we move the needle here. And I wholeheartedly believe, just to give you some hope and make you feel like and understand that what you're doing is so important, is that I honestly think this is the number one voting issue.
I think so too.
Yes. And I believe wholeheartedly that there are going to be a lot of people that secretly check that box, knowing that this is the issue, right? That they're going to, be a part of changing the trajectory of it. I'm a mother myself of a daughter who's 9. I've experienced miscarriages. And while I wholeheartely believe, like, women should have access to abortion for whatever reason they want, we have been doing polling with, the initiative that we're running, and it is overwhelming, 80 to 90%. And we've only been polling, Ryan, the women that aren't voting in Texas. 80 to 90% of them say, yes, there should be abortion for exception. And that exception is the woman's life. And that exception is race impact, or race, rape, and incest, excuse me. When you say abortion without exception, that number changes. So, but what that tells me is that there is a door open to say that it is those lack of exception laws that are putting your family in jeopardy, and the lack of clarity for the physicians in that, right? What they can and can't do.
Yeah. Well, and your reaction to me saying my fear is that it won't make a difference is exactly why I say that sort of thing. And I'm learning to say it because that's the reaction that you want. You want people to go, whoa, 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 whoa. No, no, no.
Right.
And I'm glad that you jumped in and said that, because it's such an important thing. And I've been lucky enough to speak to these experts. And I recently spoke to an expert on abortion law, and they said, look, it says if they deem it an emergency, they can perform the procedure, but there is no clear definition as to what is enough of an emergency. So
right.
the law has these exceptions in case of emergency, or, they talk about when a heartbeat is detected there, but there's no clarification as to what makes it enough of an emergency, or when the heartbeat is technically a heartbeat. There's a lot that needs to be clarified in the law. And it's so frustrating to me when people miss what's important about this, and that's the rights of the women that we love.
Absolutely. And I think with even people that, are digging their heels in and abortion is bad and we shouldn't do this, right? They can understand the conversation about legislation, and that there should be clarity in our laws. We shouldn't have to be guided by this half-baked policy, right? That nobody knows how to navigate, whether it's attorneys or legislators or doctors or families. And I think at the baseline this year in the legislature, and I see that both Representative Donna Howard and Senator Eckhart have joined. And so maybe at the very end, we can talk to them about this. But that's one thing that we could ask for in the legislature this year is, like, can we at least just get some clarity here so we can save some lives?
Absolutely.
So that our doctors don't feel like whatever they do is going to land them in jail.
Absolutely. And I've been in countless conversations and arguments, and a lot of it's been heated online, where people are saying it's a miscarriage, it's not an abortion, it's this, it's not that. They are medically coded in a hospital as the same thing. And you hear terms like spontaneous abortion instead of, incomplete miscarriage. So they're failing to realize that doctors have to navigate something that is medically coded in the hospital when it goes into the computer as to what they did as abortion or abortion care, no matter what. That's what goes into the computer. So as you guys know, and I'm sure you've talked about it before, they face huge fines and prison time if it is deemed that they performed some sort of abortion care when they shouldn't have. So it absolutely needs to be, you know, clearer. And it's just not right now.
Yeah, 100%. And imagine being that physician, right? You go into this field, you know, to care for people, and then and not being able to do that. But also I want to say loudly for everybody that's on this call, and as you're talking to people, that Republicans have been really good at weaponizing that. They understand that the general public does not understand what a D&C is. And they understand that the word abortion has been vilified. And so that's why we don't call it these other things in the hospitals and the coding
Right.
and whatnot. And so part of what I think you're doing so brilliantly, Ryan, is that you're laying that out for people. You're simplifying it. You're saying this is what it is, you know, and you're wrong. And this is how they code it, and helping people understand that, because that's what's going to change hearts and minds, right? The
Well,
facts,
I
the
hope
truth
so.
around what's happening. So I want to thank you so very much. And please forgive my dog in the background. I'm really sorry,
You don't
everybody.
have to
Could
forgive
be a
your
kid,
dog. Not
could
at
be a
all.
dog. Like, you never know what's happening. I'm fostering kittens, y'all. It's like a zoo around here all the time. Anyway, Brian, I want to thank you so much for being here with us tonight, and sharing your story and doing the work that you're doing. This is the moment for all of us to do it and make a difference. And I hope that you know, the news that came out this weekend about, you know, the new president potential also fires people up. You know, I've followed a lot of threads, Black women Georgia voters that were saying we weren't going to vote. We're absolutely lined up now, you know. And so I really have a hope that that's going to supercharge people and supercharge this issue. So I want to thank you so much for being here tonight. And y'all, if you haven't heard Ryan's podcast, which the team is going to drop the link in the chat, please sign on, listen to his incredible guests and all the work he's doing with Correct. That's the right name? Is that right?
That's it.
Yes.
Correct.
All right. And so anyway, listen to what he has to say. Please give him a follow. And Ryan, thanks for your support. Anything we can do for y'all, please let us know. But what we're going to be focused on, our hope is to help y'all by flipping this state, by turning out more voters to vote the right way and educating them on this policy and how dangerous it is. So